Juliette and I help produce a show about motorsports. I'm meeting with Dave Richardson to find out what can be done to make a motorcycle more comfortable for a woman. In part 2, Dave explains simple changes that can be made to the clutch and brake levers.
What I want to talk about more is how to adapt the bike to make it more comfortable for you. And in adapting, some things will be easy, some things will be cheap, some things will be expensive, some things will really be trade-offs. You have to say, boy, how much do I really want to make this bike fit me? There'll be a lot of little subjects here, and some of them apply to all bikes and some to just certain bikes. So here's an example of a bike that has a fairly light clutch pull, but a very long travel to the lever. And for a lot of women, that's just too long of a reach to grab easily. And plus, the farther you reach, the more it feels like it takes a lot of effort. Now, there's a very simple thing that can be done to make this easier, and that is to adjust this little adjustment on the cable so that there's tremendously more free motion here. So usually this would only move a very small amount like that. So we're going to make it move that much before it starts to pull the cable. And by doing so, the point where you start to feel the tension of the cable is farther back, and that makes it much lighter to pull. Now, the negative of that is that if you adjust that too loose, you could be to the point where, even pulled in all the way, you have not fully disengaged the clutch. And you would know this because sitting on the bike in gear, the bike would be trying to creep forward. Or another way to test for it is put the bike in first gear and see if you can shift from first to neutral. If it wants to go through to second gear instead of stopping at neutral, that's an indication that the clutch is not fully disengaging, in which case you would need to adjust a little more tension into the cable so that you get a full disengagement. Now, another thing you can do, and some bikes, is to find an aftermarket lever that has one of these little adjustments on it. And what this does is, by turning this dial, I'm changing how far out the lever is compared to its pivot point. Now, if I have this in its tightest in position, either one of these, I have a lever that is slightly farther back than the original. So that would make a lighter pull. Again, the same thing that we were doing by adjusting the cable slack. We are trying to move the point where you grab it farther back. So finding a lever like this, it might be something that's on a fancier model bike than what you're looking at. It could be something available from the aftermarket. Now, here's an example of an extra little problem you can run into. When we first came up with an alternative lever, this one in particular, it turned out to have the pivot point distance to the clutch cable longer than what it was on the original. The longer this distance, the less leverage you have at pulling the cable. And therefore, we wound up with a situation where the lever might have been closer to the handlebar, but the draw of the cable felt tougher. And luckily, in this case, we came up with another different lever where this hole is closer. You can see that distance is a little bit shorter than here. So that restored the feeling that it was a light pull and gained us the lever closer to the bar. You won't always find that advantage, and maybe you have to go to somebody who's got a little high-speed grinder who can elongate this hole. So rather than being round, it would be sort of an oval coming down here a little bit. And you might think, well, what's going to happen to this cable end here? It'll always try to go to the point closest to the pivot. So having an elongated hole will actually work fine for you, and it won't cause any problems. So all these little possibilities to make the clutch a lighter pull, and the same thing would apply to the brake side.